Chapter 14. Driver. Alex is the love of her life. They met in a bar, a college bar, in College Town. It was the place to be on a Saturday night. He's from out of town, an upscale, cool place that everyone would love to be from. Popular and well-renowned for its aesthetic beauty and architecture. People there have ways of making all the money they usually have. She loves him. Immediately after catching sight of his eyes, she realizes he is actually trying to have a conversation with her nonchalant yes and no replies. She leaves with him after an extremely short interchange. It is completely out of her character to do so. She was raised in a clean, wholesome, and protected environment, and her mother would roll over in her grave if she could have seen her then. Many nights of frequenting this bar, she was searching for something. And now it seemed that she had found it. His eyes held the secret of her search. They walked a few blocks to his friend's apartment. On arrival, he introduced his friend and another person there. The apartment smelled of a distinct smoke. She turned to him and asked, "Do you smoke?" "No," he lied. They kissed and made out in a bedroom. She got up. He's not happy about it. He wonders why she won't stay with him. "How could I? I don't even know your last name." The following weekend, she met up with Alex again. She knows his last name now. They were now a couple. She visited his place about 2.5 hours away and stayed the weekend in his parents' house with him. It's the picture-perfect life she would lead with Alex by her side now. It's the dream everyone talks about. She was abandoning one type of life in exchange for this new life. Her waking thoughts went to him, and it was his face she saw each night before she slept. Certain friends got to meet him from her old life, but she was very intrigued by his friends from his life. They were kind-natured and funny and made everything seem all right and very good. They make her good. The extreme isolation at her home was almost unbearable as she slowly lets her old life drift away from her conscience. But she cried herself to sleep some nights. The tears fell on his bare chest and he twitched in his sleep one night from the warm drops turned cold in their travel from her eyes to his heart. They go ring shopping and find the perfect stone. Alex seemed almost proud of the rock he had purchased as his investment. They found a romantic spot by the water in an upscale restaurant, and he tells her he is so happy to have her with him. They can't take their eyes off each other. After dinner, they shop and look at the sights as Claire de Lune plays in the background as they ascend an escalator. "I thought you'd never come," she says. "Of course I would," he answers, looking deeply into her eyes. That night, they show his parents the diamond, and there is an atmosphere of glee as the family goes about the usual comings and goings of another evening at home. How she loves him. That night, she can't help but stare at the ring in the darkness, turning her hand this way and that, rubbing her thumb over the surface of the stone. All her dreams were coming true. In her way, she has been known to tear apart the things she cares for. A night of drinking with Alex's friends causes her to stray far from her own heart by escorting a boy dancing drunkenly in the middle of the room with everyone watching and laughing. A girl leans over and says to her, "Get your boy, get your boy. Get him, go get him." She gets up and walks over to the boy, and he instantly pushes her to the edge of the room and down a hallway, in front of everyone, pants hanging. This drives Alex mad. Shortly after, he follows and finds them in a room with the door closed. He says, "All my girlfriends always end up in situations like this." She imagined it's because Alex has always given them a reason to want attention from him. From that night on, Alex is impossible to please. His anger at the incident of the drunk dancer poisons his feelings for her. He was never overly cruel, but purposeful slights show his growing despondency. A couple of months go by, and they no longer have everything either of them want in a relationship. Time has a way of bringing normality to any life. It eats away at perfection just as death eats away at flesh in the end. Misunderstandings and wrong moves destroy love. Fullness can morph into lack and much to be desired by a young woman navigating the sea, people and actions unfamiliar to her. Propriety long lost, commitment hanging by a hair. Holidays came and went so quickly that, in a few short months before she could see who she had become, her reflection blared back at her in a mirror one night. Behind her eyes, she could see her very own portrait of Dorian Gray. Who had she become? a person she couldn't recognize. Alex had eaten up all her heart and reasoning skills and desires. He could no longer remember what was important to her because the smoke that filled his lungs altered the function of his own mind. She could not ask for something from him that he was not in possession of himself. She was fed up with Alex and all the emotional insults he had asked her to overlook. Perhaps she had stopped having fun with him like he had mused one day. He loved his dogs. That was never a problem before, but somehow then, at 3 a.m, on an uncomfortable mattress on the floor, the dog's comfort overruled her comfort. She sits up in the darkness. She looks down and sees a person she no longer could recognize, and that scared her. She got up. "Where are you going?" he asks, sleep still heavy in his voice. It only takes him a moment to realize what's going on. "Don't leave. It's too dangerous to drive at this hour of the night." In that moment, she knew it would be the last time she ever heard his voice again in that way. She was crying before she reached her car. Did she say goodbye to him? She knows it's the last time she will set foot on the same part of the earth he walks. She will give him up. She must. What else hadn't she already given up to be with him? Most of her friends hated her for being with him. If there was a sin to commit, it was definitely the life she had been leading with him. God forgive her. She was driving. It was late and there were almost no cars on the roads. Her months of life with Alex were over in that minute. Should she turn around and go back? How could she be doing this? How could this be the actual end after all they had shared? No, she deserved better than to be compared to weed and not come out the victor. She doesn't nag me. She makes me feel good. She gives me money. Sorry, babe, she wins, he retorts. She was the idiot for believing his lies for all these months. How could she have been so blind to the life he was leading? But life without him could not possibly be lived. She would hate her life back at the home she had turned her back on. How could she show her face there again? There was nothing to go back to in her mind, and yet she could not go back to Alex and live out that life. She had nowhere to go. It's the dead of night with nowhere to go. How could she be in this position again? She hated herself then and the life she had squandered and the life she was driving away from. Each minute that passed was a mile further away from all she had loved. What kind of life would that be? Perhaps she should end it. Don't drive away any further. The cement traffic divider called to her in all sincerity and honesty. It was hope. It's the perfect ending to her story of failures. Her eyes stared lifelessly ahead, and she knew that at her speed there would be no pain, and the pain inside her, beating at her heart, would stop too. She slowly released the wheel. Later it would be said that what appeared to be some sort of whitish string suddenly flurried in front of her, causing her to jerk awake to her senses again and make her way the next 2 hours without drifting back to such dark thoughts.